All right, good morning. I hope you guys had a great weekend. What I like to do is start today with talking about something called a half-life. Um, the what I want to kind of just begin and ease us into this is by just defining what a half-life is and then actually kind of letting you visually see how this works. Okay. Now, eventually, we will do the math behind this. So, I will tell you for this lesson, you will have to have a calculator. You can use your phone. You don't have to do anything special because it's going to be simple multiplication and division. Okay. It's just remembering what numbers to correctly multiply or divide. Okay. Now, when you think of the word half, what do you think of? Well, one half or 50%. That means every time we go through a half life of something, all we're doing is cutting it in half. We're dividing it by 2. So the definition, and I've put this picture as well for you in your notes, is the half-life of a radioisotope is the length of time it takes for its radioactivity to fall to half its original amount. Okay? Now, the whole purpose of it going through radioactive decay is because it wants to become stable. It wants to get to a stable point. Okay, now we've actually used this a lot with carbon dating, and you kind of see this down here to see how long things may have lived, which is pretty neat. So here are some common radioisotopes that we normally see. Um, but let's kind of visualize this. Let's start by looking at page 29. Okay, so page 29 looks like this. Okay, you should see a graph and you should see this set of instructions. Okay, now this is simply to show you the process of a half-life. Okay, all this is following instructions. So it says use a pencil to draw a large X through half of the boxes on the left side of the grid. Okay, so all you're going to do is literally find the half point and cross off half. Okay, and that's what you're doing each time that it tells you out of the remaining boxes. Whatever ones you haven't crossed off, that's the one you're going to continue working with. Okay, now how many grams of the element decayed? Well, I don't know. Well, if you look up here in the instructions, okay, it clearly tells you that we start with 256 grams. So if we're going to cut half of that, how much would you have left? Well, we would do 256 divided by 2. So after one half-life, because we cut it in half, we'd only have 128 grams. So I know for some of you, you're like, whoa, you've already lost me. I have no idea what you're talking about. So I've attached this picture for you guys in Classroom. Now I use color, and I use the colors of Thor here to kind of show you what your graph should eventually look like. And you'll notice that each time I cut it in half, I've numbered them so that you can see what I mean by each half-life. So this is 100% of the original radioisotope. So for your example on page 29, this is your full 256 grams. Okay? Now it says its half-life is 10 weeks. So basically 10 weeks has passed. After 10 weeks, we only have half of the material left. You notice we went from 100% to 50%. This means one half life has passed. I have cut my material in half. So we're going to wait another 10 weeks. And this is remember, what you're demonstrating with your graph on page 29. In that half we had left, look at that. What happened to it? It got cut in half. So you'll notice we've gone through 2 half-lives. And with that, we only have 25% of the material left. Why? Because 100 divided by half is 50. 50 divided in half is 25. So now we only have 25% of our original material. So we're going to go another 10 weeks. And look at this, what happened after 10 weeks. Another half-life's passed. We've done 1 half-life, 2 half-lives, 3 half-lives. This is all we have left. At this point, we now only have 12.5% of the original material. So we're going to keep going. We're going to wait another 10 weeks. Now that little bit we have left, we've cut it in half again. So now we're down to 4 half-lives. Now we only have 6.25% of our material remaining. Now you're like, well, what about grams? Well, we can just simply keep dividing. So if we started with 256 grams, we divide that in half, we now have 128 grams after 1 half-life. We're going to divide it in half again. Now we have 64 grams because we've gone through 2 half-lives. We've divided it in half twice. Then we're going to take that 64 grams because that's all we have left, right? And we're going to divide it in half again. So now we only have 32 grams. We're going to take that 32 grams and we're going to divide it in half again. Now we only have 16 grams. And you can kind of see a pattern here. We're going to take that 16 grams and we're going to divide it in half again. Okay? Now we only have 3.125% of the material. That means we only have 8 grams left. So after 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 half-lives, we only have 8 grams. Now we're going to go another 10 weeks. We're going to divide that in half again. Now we only have 4 grams of the material. After 6 half-lives, that means we only have 1.56%. And then you see I've done it again over here, 7. This means by the end of 7 half-lives, there's only 2 grams of the material left. Because each time something goes through a half-life, we cut the material in half. That's the key word here. So you're only going to be dividing by what number? 2. That's right, because you're dealing with a half. So let's kind of put this in perspective. Let's use some numbers to kind of make this a little clearer. So you've got your picture. You should have completed your graph. You got your notes. So let's actually look at some of these slides here. Now all right. Now, we didn't do the lab because you guys wouldn't be able to do it very well without being in a class. I tried to figure out how you could do it without it, but it just wouldn't make a lot of sense. So I kind of skipped that. So question number 2 isn't going to be as clear as I was hoping it would be because obviously we're not in person, but I will kind of explain to you. The half-life rate, in other words, the amount of time it takes for whatever it is, whether it be carbon-14, some imaginary element, to cut itself in half, okay? It doesn't matter how much you have, okay? So the amount of atoms does not matter, okay? Because that half-life is going to be the same no matter if I have 8 grams or if I have 100 grams. If it's carbon-14, it's going to decrease at the same rate. Okay? Now, I apologize for not telling you this just a second ago, but you are actually, I'm looking at page 33. So let me put this out here to the side for you guys. I'm sorry about that. We are now on page 33. Okay? So the amount of atoms does not matter. Okay? It's going to decay or it's going to cut in half at the same rate. Now, for some of you, atoms don't make a whole lot of sense, but money does. So I wanted to give you this example in number 3 to kind of help you visually see what I'm actually talking about. So it says, I'm going to give you $1,000. And you notice this is dream on there because I'm really not going to give you $1,000. But you must spend only half of it in the first year, half of the balance the second year, etc. 1 year thus represents a half-life of 1,000. Okay, so let me kind of break this down for you. What we're saying is I'm going to give you $1,000. Every year you can only spend half of that money. Okay, so 1 half-life is 1 year. So every year you can only spend half of whatever money that you have left. Oops. So let me do this a little differently here so that you guys can see it. So I kind of highlighted in red so that you can see. So we want to know if I spend the maximum amount allowed each year, at the end of what year would I only have $31.25 left to live off of? Holy cow. All right. So what you want to do to figure this out, because we want to know basically how many half-lives, how long did it take me to only get to $31? So to help you see this, I'm going to start with 1,000, right? Now, we're going to go through 1 year. So we're going to divide that by 2. Why am I dividing by 2? Because half-life means you divide by what? 2. Now that's going to give me how much? 1,000 divided by 2 is 500. That means my first year, I could only spend $500. This is all I have left going into year 2. That's it. So now, are we the $31 yet? Nope. So we're going to divide it in half again. Now, I only have how much? $250. So I've been through 1 half-life, which is 1 year, 2 half-lives, which is 2 years. Now we're on our 3rd half-life. Have we got to $31 yet? Nope. But in year 3, I can only spend half of this. So I'm going to divide it in half again. So $250 divided by 2 is only $125. So I could only spend $125 in year 3. So now I'm going to go, and we're still not to that 31.25 yet. We're going to take that 125 and we're going to divide it in half again. So we're going to go into year 4. So I'm going to divide that by 2. Now I only have $62.50 to live off of. We still haven't got to that 31.25, so we're going to divide it in half again. Now we've got to $31.25. Our numbers match, but it wants to basically know how many years it took us to get to this. In other words, how many half-lives? Well, all you have to do, guys, is count how many times you divided by 2. So let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So how many half-lives? 5. It took 5 half-lives to get to $31.25. Now, you guys think you could live off $31.25 for a whole year? No. But it's kind of like, wow, that's a lot to think about. Every year, you had to cut your money in half. Well, that's what happens to atoms. So let's take this the next step further. What if we were to take that $31 and we want to see how much we'd have left after 10 half-lives? That means 10 years, right? Because 1 half-life is equal to 1 year. So that means we're going to take this $31 and we're going to go through 5 more half-lives. Why? Because this is already 5, and 5 plus 5 equals 10. So 31.25, we're going to divide that by half. So this will be year 6. The end of year 6, we could have only spent $15.63. Well, we got to go to 7 half-lives. We're going to divide that in half again. Now we only have $7.81. We got to go to 10 half-lives, so now we're going to divide in half again. It's going to give us 8 half-lives. Now we have $3.90. So we've got 5 half-lives, 6, 7, 8. We still aren't done, so we can divide this in half again. At the end of 9 half-lives, we have $1.95. But we got to get to 10, so we're going to divide that in half one more time to get through 10 half-lives, which is 10 years. So by year 10, we would only have 98 cents to live off of. We ain't going to live very long.